Introduce the HERA mission, we are very happy to have Olivier GIRARD with us. He's the head of unit medical countermeasurements at the European Commission. He will start by explaining a little bit what the HERA mission is exactly, and then I have some questions for him, and we also can take some of your questions in case you might have some. But first, I leave him the floor.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Olivier GIRARD. I'm the head of unit for medical countermeasures in a new organization in the European galaxy called HERA. HERA is the child of the COVID-19 crisis, and it can be defined as a new player in the industrial ecosystem when it comes to biotech, when it comes to medicines, to medical technologies. And the rationale behind HERA is that the COVID-19 crisis has taught us that when it comes to Europe, regulation is important, but regulation is not enough. The fight against health crisis is an industrial challenge. And for that, we need to be well equipped. Hence, the idea of the creation of a new authority. And so we thought that it could be a good idea after 2 years, because I'm being indeed recalled that the creation of HERA was indeed announced in 2021 by Commissioner Breton here in Paris. So I'm here to pitch, and I'm here to give you some feedback on where we stand 2 years later. So maybe a few elements on our mandate. So as I was saying, the COVID-19 crisis has taught us that Europe was not well prepared to fight health crisis. And it has taught us that Europe was not well coordinated when it comes to fighting health crisis. So the mandate of HERA is based on those two principles. First of all, be prepared. And second, be well equipped when it comes to fighting health crisis. We have identified 3 priorities in our mandate, 3 priority threats. The first one are pathogens of pandemic nature. So we have a list of 10 pathogens. Some of you might be familiar with coronavirus, poxvirus, arenavirus, filovirus, flavivirus, you name it. We have 10 pathogens, actually. The second set of priorities is antimicrobial resistance, a topic which is getting more and more important at the moment. And the third priority is chemical, biological, nuclear, and radiological threats. So this is quite a broad mandate. And for this purpose, we have been given a budget of 6 billion euros for the end of what we call the financial perspective in Europe. So that's basically between now and 2026. 2027, there will be a new financial perspective, there will be a new budget, but between now and 2026, we have to spend those 6 billion euros. And we have developed a set of tools and initiatives to where we can dedicate this funding. So in terms of mandate, we have 2 modes of functioning, a preparedness mode and a crisis mode. And when it comes to preparedness, we are focusing, and that's what we are working now. Of course, we are moving away from the COVID-19 emergency, which was the rationale behind our creation, towards a more medium-term agenda, an agenda focusing on preparedness. So we are developing a set of capacities to be able to be better prepared. So the first set of capacity, of course, is a detection capacity to be able to detect the threats. So we are working very closely with the EMA. I'm too loud?
No, not loud enough.
Not loud enough, okay.
Or
good.
if you want this microphone,
Sorry, I thought I was loud enough, okay. So we are developing this detection technology and framework together with our partners from the EMA, from the ECDC, and we have also developing a strong international network of sister organizations. One of our models, the well-established institution that we had in mind when HERA was created is BARDA in the US. So we have a lot of interactions with our US partners, but we have also developing interaction with sister organizations which are also being set up as a result of COVID-19, in particular in Japan, in Singapore, in South Korea, and of course, we have a very strong network of institutions in Europe supporting our work, be they medical agencies, but more and more also agency with an industrial mandate. So our aim is to be able to detect the threats, but it's also able to have the capacity to identify which medical countermeasures we should be able to use to fight those crises. And so we also have a very strong research and innovation mandate. We are relying on Horizon Europe, we are relying on the EU for Health program, and we are also relying on a new financial instrument that I will detail because, of course, it is of direct interest to you, which is HERA Invest, that we have developed together with the EIB, the European Investment Banks. Colleagues were already there yesterday, so I'm taking the relay on that. And from that point of view, we are also put in place a series of contractual arrangements with medicine MCM manufacturers to make sure that we have access to MCMs in times of crisis. So that's in particular a network of platform for vaccine production, which is called EUFAB. Then, of course, we have also budget to have in place stockpiles of MCM that we can tap into when crisis comes. So we are developing a true European stockpile policy so that when crisis comes, member states can rely on EU stocks to be able to fight shortages. So as you can see, it's a mandate which is end-to-end when it comes to medical countermeasures. By medical countermeasures, I mean, of course, products or services which are going to help us fight health crisis. So let me just put the focus a bit more on some of our flagship initiatives for this year. So for this year, indeed, we have to spend 1.6 billion euros. And I would say 50% of this money will go and is going to stockpiles. 20% is going to fundamental research, early stage research via Horizon Europe. And then we have around 30% going to, I would say, more companies which are more advanced in the development of their medical countermeasures. So it's a big budget, but that is also why we have chosen to focus on a limited number of initiatives. We are always afraid of, I would say, spreading our finance too much. We want to be very focused. So first of all, we are establishing an IT platform to be able to better detect threats before they happen. It's called Athena. We love Greek acronyms in Europe. We have also launching a series of calls under EU for Health, in particular in the field of broad-spectrum antivirals, new generation of vaccines, so not only COVID-19 vaccines, but vaccines on disease which are currently underrepresented, because of course our aim is to intervene when there is a market failure, when there is a market gap. We have launching as we speak, and as I mentioned, the EUFAB network of vaccine production platforms. So we have now 4 platforms in Europe which have reserve capacity for 325 million doses of vaccines, which are going to help us meet the gap between the start of a health crisis and the necessary production scale-up that needs to take place when it comes to develop vaccines. So we have platform for protein-based vaccine, we have platform for mRNA vaccine, We have platforms for the main categories of vaccines. So that's quite, I would say, an innovative way of working for the EU. HERA Invest, I'm going to focus on that after this slide. And of course, as I mentioned, establishment of strategic stockpiles of medical countermeasures. So these, I would say, would be our key flagships for 23. And as is also mentioned, the need, of course, to raise our profile, to get ourselves known. We are moving away from the crisis. We are moving more into a medium-term agenda. And for this purpose, it's very important for us to reach out to industry, to reach out to key stakeholders in an inclusive way. So, what is HERA Invest? You have probably heard about it from the EIB colleagues who were present yesterday, but maybe useful to give you a reminder. So, what the Commission is doing here, what HERA is doing, is to provide the EIB with a 100 million euros facility that they can use as a guarantee to provide loans, venture capital loans, to promising companies. So we are not talking at early stage development of companies, we are talking about late stage. Those facilities are usually facilities which are quasi-equity. The EU cannot invest in equity, but it can invest in quasi-equity. There is a potential leverage, of course. When we talk about 100 million, that means that it can turn into up to 900 million euros. So I think it's a good start. It's a pilot. It's a very promising pilot because there is a recognition on the side of the EIB, on the side of the EU, that the biotech sector would need and deserves stronger support when it comes to the EU, when it comes to early stage, late stage development of MCM. And again, the recognition that getting better prepared for health crisis and being able to fight health crisis is also an industrial challenge. So we are targeting SMEs and startups based in Europe, which are coming with innovative ideas. We are bringing our support together with the EIB at the condition that 50% of the support comes from the private sector and from external partners. So we can complement this support at our level up to 50%. And as I was saying, maturity is quite long. And we are in the process of developing a pipeline. We are very keen to develop a pipeline of young and promising companies in this area. This is happening as we speak. We want to be able to deliver our first investment contracts in the coming months, simply because there is also a political agenda, as usual with the EU. There is a new political cycle starting at the end of next year, and the question will be, of course, has HERA Invest delivered? So we will make sure that HERA Invest delivers, thanks to our partnership also with the EIB. So this was my introduction, and of course, let's make it as interactive as possible, and I'm very happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we see whether there's questions from our audience, you said that the HERA Investment Initiative will leverage further investments in the coming months, you said. How would this happen? How is this concretely going to happen?
So we have a team which we are building up within HERA, which job will be to receive indication of interest from companies, will be in charge of ensuring that the products that those companies are developing are in line with our priorities. I have described our priorities, but I'm, of course, available to discuss with you this further. And we will be working hand in hand with the EIB, with the life science team of the EIB, which is well established, which will be in charge of the due diligence and which will be in charge of the financial analysis of the project. So it's really a partnership. We are working hand in hand. And of course, the role of HERA is to make sure that the companies who are coming forward with their project are enabling us to fulfill our mandate and to fulfill the political objectives of HERA.
As you already mentioned, we had people from EIB on stage yesterday, indeed. One of the last things you said in your presentation is that you want to build a relationship with the industry. How are you planning to create that relationship with the industry? You're here, obviously, for that. What else would you be doing?
Sure. So we want to be present in very important events like this one. I think it's an excellent opportunity to get to know the community of biotech companies in Europe. We want also to follow the American model that BARDA has developed by organizing next year, date to be confirmed, HERA Industry Days, which will take place probably in Brussels, which will also be an opportunity for us and our partners of the Commission and other potential investors to meet up and to get to know each other. There is also a very important political signal. This is always important in Europe, which took place yesterday. It's perfect timing. Communication has been adopted on fighting shortages of critical medicines. And we have received a mandate to set up an industrial alliance for critical medicines. So this may sound a bit vague and a bit theoretical, but this is actually very important in the sense that this sends a signal that for Europe, there is a real political mobilization on the issue of critical medicines and behind this in relation to the biotech industry. This way of functioning has a good track record. Alliances have been put in place for batteries when it comes to the automotive industry, for semiconductors, for the solar industry, for zero-emission aircraft. And it is basically a forum where all stakeholders come around the table and help us identify what are the priorities to tackle technical challenges for the industry. And obviously, when it comes to critical medicine, we have a massive challenge. We have a massive challenge of ensuring security of supply for EU patients. We have a massive challenge of ensuring the resilience of our supply chains. And we have also a challenge of competitiveness. And so we want to bring the industry, we want to bring the stakeholder, we want to bring the patients, of course, we want to bring the academia, we want to bring the health professionals, we want to bring also the government around the table, we want to bring the health ministries and the industry ministries around the table to help us identify the priorities for the next commission. The political mandate of this commission ends next summer, basically, and you're going to have a new political cycle. And it may sound quite long, but we believe that the months ahead, between now and the summer, can be extremely fruitful together to identify what are the challenges for critical medicines, for the biotech industry for the future. So we really need also your help. We need your contribution. And behind this, there is the recognition that public money, public investment needs to be there to actually stimulate the development of a true industrial policy in this area. And we have been able to do so, to mobilize energies, to mobilize financing for the industrial challenges that I have mentioned, batteries, semiconductors, and so on. We need to do the same for medicines. We need to do the same for MCM. We need to do the same for biotech. This has been a bit lagging behind. I think it's a question of urgency. There was a question of multiplication of crises. But in a way, COVID-19, unfortunately, but also fortunately for us, has definitely been a game changer in the way the medical sector, the industrial medical sector is perceived in the EU, and the recognition that regulation is not enough, but you need a true industrial policy.
Okay, let's see whether somebody's got a question for you in our audience. Yes, we have a question. Could you go with the microphone there, please?
Yes, the medical products or services development is a worldwide challenge and also needing a lot of collaboration between the countries. So I have two questions. One A personal question, you spoke about collaboration with Singapore or Korea, countries I know well. Do you think to have the same for Israel? Because I am also Israeli, you know, so because Israel is a very innovative country. I was speaking with the chief scientist yesterday, you know, so do you think to have that sort of collaboration? Because I know that the chief scientist is looking for that sort of policy, so we'll be very interested to collaborate with Europe. They have already collaboration, you know, they are part of HERA and other things. So the first question. Second question is, I know affiliates of European companies in US receiving money from the BARDA, you know. Do you think to do the same if a US company, because we need collaboration, because sometimes US is better, sometimes Europe is better, and if they commit to create jobs, research, or manufacturing plants in Europe, do you think to help them also?
Thank you for your question. So on the first question, when it comes to our cooperation with partners in third countries, it's really in our DNA, it's really in our mandate. So we are aware that fighting against health threats completely ignores boundaries. So, of course, this is why we are reaching out to the countries which have acknowledged that this was a priority. And as you could hear it on the session on investing in Asia, pandemic preparedness is an old story in Asia. They are very much advanced with the flu, with the H5N8 pandemic, and so forth. So they are quite advanced on that. So, of course, we went to see Singapore. We went to see South Korea. Japan has also just set up an equivalent of HERA because they have realized that there were limitations in their manufacturing capacities when COVID-19 struck, so they had to develop their manufacturing capacity. And of course, Israel is a very advanced country when it comes to biotechnology, so we are also developing our interaction with Israel. That's very important. When it comes to where we put our money, it is true that if I take HERA Invest, because the money comes from the Commission, because the money comes from the EIB, an important element will be the European footprint. So, of course, the priority and the starting point will be to make sure that the MCM will benefit, will be accessible to European patients, because that's our priority, of course. But because it is EIB money, we will look, we cannot afford not to look at the European footprint from an industrial point of view, by definition.
Our time is actually up, but I'm going to just take the question in the front. Can I ask you to ask the question in English, please? Thank you. And make it a brief question with a brief answer, if possible.
Good morning. Carmela Sarfati, France Israel Chamber of Commerce. I'm mounting an association about promoting innovation, collaboration between Israel, France, and Europe. And I was asking myself, very frequently now, why we don't have a more innovative-minded society, and also how can we do things so that the society will be more receptive to this field, especially in medical innovation.
Well, that's a very difficult question that you are asking. We are, I would say, contributing at our very small level on this, but our idea is to develop the tools that can bring and help bring innovations to the market very quickly, and to capitalize on the experience that we have built through COVID-19, because we have been able to actually bet on new technologies, in particular mRNA, which didn't have the opportunity until then to become industrially developed, and it was a very successful bet at the end. And so we can be very proud of this, because mRNA was developed thanks to, in particular, EU money. So there is a track record here. There is a recognition that Europe can also be an engine for innovation, and that innovation can benefit the life of our citizens. I'm very happy myself to have a job now that I can, I'm working in the European institution, but I have a job that I can explain to my children. I mean, that is always very difficult when you work in Brussels. But in that case, there is a direct benefit for the citizens. And I think that it is really a game changer when it comes to innovation. Very positive.
Thank you so much for this answer. And indeed, I think this is where these 2 days is about, is how can we explain not only to children but to many people how health tech will change their lives. Thank you so much for being with us today, and I'm going to invite all of you to lunch, and then we'll be back with another roundtable.
Merci.